I'm Dr. Natalie Phillips, host of Just Connect, a show where we chat about connections through social media, learning opportunities, and through the people we meet every day. Join me every Wednesday on Facebook Live at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I am an audiologist, a business owner, an entrepreneur, and a connector. This life is about connecting for the right reasons and to the right people. I believe making authentic and true connections lead to growth, change, and impacting the world.
All right. Hello, my people. Okay. I am Dr. Natalie Phillips, and I am host of Just Connect. Thank you guys so much for jumping on. And I have my awesome friends, Marcus Stone and Anthony, Ant-Man. So I'm super glad that you guys are here, and Elizabeth Lyons is here. Oh my gosh, the party's here. Okay. So I'm super excited to talk about this topic today. But before I get there, I wanted to talk about our event that's coming up, and it is coming up this weekend. Oh my gosh, it's like 2 days. So I know I've been talking about this, but I have to put this up, and it's going to go right over my face, which is totally fine. But I am like super excited about this event because, oh my gosh, look at all our flipping sponsors. I'm super excited. We're starting to get the swag bags together. We're starting to get everything all ready and bagged up, and I'm going to pick up my good friend Kirsten Hegelson, who is going to be our keynote speaker. Oh my gosh, we're planning the nature hike. Oh wow. So just try to keep up on the weekend. I know I will be posting things, and I'll actually be tweeting out a lot. So I'm super duper excited. Unbreakable, Finding Strength in Imperfection is coming up soon. And my good friend Corey Workman is here too. So I am so excited to see you all. Let me just get that up and running. All right. Okay. So I am so jazzed about this topic that I wanted to talk about. And I actually didn't have a topic this morning, and I had some conversations, and I was looking at some posts, and this totally just blew me away. And I really wanted to talk about this because, you guys, this is like my jam. This is my jam, like listening. Listening is my jam. As you know, I'm an audiologist by day. And so I'm super duper excited because I feel like I do this for a living, right? I'm talking about listening, and I do this for a living. I help people listen. Or actually, do I? So those of you that know audiology, and I'm so glad my dear friend Corey Workman is on because he is a fellow audiologist in Estes Park. You know, the most that we can do as audiologists is equip people to be able to hear, right? That's typically what we do, is we equip people to be able to hear, but we can't promise that they're going to be able to listen. There's a difference there, and I wanted to spend time talking about that today, and that's why I'm so excited, because I have, you know, husband and wives that come in and say, oh my gosh, okay, he's so not like listening to me or whatever. And so please check his hearing and tell me what his hearing looks like, right? And, you know, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I pull them out of the booth and I'm like, okay, here's the deal. Your husband or your wife actually has normal hearing. Corey, can I get an amen? Because how many times have you had to do this? And then we end up becoming counselors and say, okay, let's sit down and let's figure out what the real problem is. And so the most we can do is, if they do have a hearing loss, we can give them a hearing aid, and that's going to help them hear. But it's not necessarily going to help them listen. So like, I'm super, super jazzed again to talk about listening and hearing, and really, you know, covering this topic because there is a difference, you know, and I do help people hear. I hope that they listen. But the biggest difference to me between hearing and listening is the connection. And I'm going to talk about that. And yes, Corey says, amen, totally. And Elizabeth, it is so true. Like they say, it's more check his hearing than check her hearing, but it happens. Yes, Leanne Ryan Smith, how are you doing? And she says selective hearing or selective listening. Corey says, I don't test for selective hearing, too dangerous. Absolutely. Okay, so I do this for a living, but you know what I said, the biggest difference between hearing and listening is really the connection. And so, you know what? I actually do this for a living. This is where like my two worlds intersect because I'm an audiologist. So I really do live in the world of hearing and listening. But then I'm also in the world of connection because that's what I love to do. And that's what my other business is. It's Connect for Excellence. So like, this is like where my world collides. And I'm super excited for this topic, as you can tell. So why do I love this topic? Why do I love this topic? I came up with, 3 really good reasons of why. It's because number one, I actually have had to learn it. I don't know if you guys have had to learn it. So those of you who are on here with me live, if you have had to learn to listen at some point in your life, throw me some hearts, throw me some thumbs up, whatever. But it is something that we all have to learn. We all have to learn to listen, right? So I've had to learn to listen. Number 2, the reason why I really love this topic is because I actually understand the pathways of hearing and listening and connection. And so I'm going to get a little clinical with you guys, and I am going to actually teach you about the pathway of sound in the brain. But yes, I understand that. And then number 3, the reason why I'm super jazzed about talking about this is because it just seems to be a topic of discussion that repeats itself. So even if you do learn how to listen, doesn't mean that you're going to listen right away the very next time something happens, right? And it's not just about listening to your parents, to your spouse, to a teacher, to your boss, whatever it is. But I'm also talking about listening to the decisions that you have to make in your life. And so that's what I want to focus on as well. So let's go back to those 3 reasons. And number 1, I have had to learn it. So I want to kind of go back and share with you why I've had to learn it and in what types of instances. Number 1, I've been involved with different people or with different organizations in which I've actually seen that things happen and people treated wrongly. And I've tried to either turn the other way or try to ignore it. And I don't know, you guys keep talking to me. I'll keep reading your comments. But if you're with me where you have been in a place where you've seen something happen and you're like, oh my gosh, wow. And you just try to keep your blinders on and like, I'm just going to come here and do my work, and that's all it is. And people have been treated wrongly or unfairly, or people have been talked down to. I've been there. I have been there where I've seen it and I've tried to let it go. I've also had people warn me not to get involved with organizations before I've decided to. So as I'm swirling around these opportunities, I've had really good friends come out and say, yeah, don't get involved with them. They don't have a good reputation, or you might want to think about this. Or so they will flat out come out and tell me that. And I've been there where did I listen or did I not listen, right? Another thing that I've thought about was I've actually been involved in an organization and somebody has actually come to me and said, get the heck out of there. What are you doing? You're in there too long. Get out. It's not good for you. It's not good for you to be there. You need to get out now. And I've had good friends that have done that to me as well. So, there are different ways that I've had to learn, and I've had to, sometimes I don't make the right decision, right? And then I deal with it later. The only thing we've talked, Marcus Stone put this amazing post today up. And this is part of the reason why that I wanted to talk about this because, he talked about failing. And no matter what, you have to continue to fail and continue to fail in order to get to the point where you are. Elizabeth Lyons had some great points on that. Anthony was on that feed as well. And there was a whole talk about listening. And again, that was what helped me make my content today. But then also failing. And why are we so afraid to fail? Elizabeth says she loves to fail, right? And so it's one of those things where it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But if you make that decision and you walk forward and you fail, you just keep going, right? You just keep moving on. So I've also been confused in decisions and not being confident in my own skill set and my own abilities at times. I've been blinded and people say, you really should be doing that. And I'm like, no, I don't think I should be doing that at all. And I didn't see necessarily what other people saw at the time. And so I had to learn to listen. I had to learn to listen to these people who are saying, no, I'm serious. You're really good at this. You need to focus on this right now. And so again, those are people that are telling me, and my choice is, do I listen or do I not listen, right? But how did I learn it? How did I learn it? You heard me allude to this. I did have a few people around me, some people that have already, I built some trusted relationships with, in which I knew that if they told me something, it was probably true, and that they weren't really just telling me to like fluff me up or anything like that, but they really cared. Like I've already built these relationships. I've already built these relationships or connections of trust. And so having those few people around, I knew that in my time of decision, if they were going to tell me something, it was probably a really good point to hear, right? But I'm telling you, discernment is hard, and a discernment comes with time, and discernment is tested all the time. All the time. I'm not saying that once you make a decision that, okay, I'm free and clear, and the next time I make this decision or I make a decision, oh my gosh, it's going to be easier. It might not be easier, but that is something that we have to get better at, listening. And so having, just letting you know that I've learned also to listen, and I'm still learning to listen. I just wanted to put that out there, that we're all doing this. Okay, so the second reason why I really wanted to talk about this was not just that I've gone through it, but also because I understand the pathways of hearing and listening. So I'm going to put up this little graphic that I made as soon as I got home from work. Okay, so it is the pathway. Okay, I have to decide. I'm going to be on this side, so it's not right in the middle of me. So this is the pathway of hearing. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this. I know it gets a little brain and clinical, but I mean, oh my gosh. I talk about this pathway of sound with my patients that I work with tinnitus, because tinnitus is sounds in the ears, and it is something that most people can kind of ignore, and some people they can't ignore, right? And so it becomes more bothersome. So I wanted to walk through this pathway of sound. So I don't have a cursor or anything, but I'm going to walk it through you anyway with the arrows. So in the beginning, it starts at the level of the ear. I'm trying to put my finger there. Okay, so sound comes in at the level of the ear, all right? So everything comes in the ear, and that's at the point where you hear it. It literally goes through the hearing mechanism, and you can't decide to do anything but hear it, right? You're hearing it. Everything is excited in your ear, so you're actually hearing something. Sounds and phonemes put together make words. Words with inflection and in context start to make meaning to you, right? So when sound comes in and hits the ear, it goes up to the subcortical level of your brain, okay? Where at this level, we really learn to detect something, and then if it has no meaning to us, it goes out the door here, okay? So the subcortical level of your brain. So we do this all the time. When you put sunglasses on the top of your head and you go into the grocery store and you are shopping around and you come back to your car and you're like, oh my gosh, where did I put my sunglasses, right? It's because when you had your sunglasses on, when you first put it on before you left to go into the grocery store, you knew that it was there, but if it had no meaning to you, it goes out the door. It goes out the door. You forget all about it. However, if your sunglasses had meaning, which means that if they were tight and they were pushing on your temples, by the time that you got back to the car, your subcortical level of your brain would say, oh my gosh, I've got to get these sunglasses off because they're hurting my head and I have a headache now. And I don't feel really good right now, right? So if there was meaning, it would linger. But if it doesn't have any meaning to you, it goes out the door, right? So that's hearing sound. Now, once it goes up to the pathway of the subcortical level of your brain, it goes up higher to the cortical level of your brain. Now your brain, instead of just detecting something at the subcortical level of your brain, it is going to perceiving it and evaluating it in the higher level of brain activity, which is that cortical level of your brain. That picture where we all see, that's the brain, right? And so here, your brain is now making sense out of something, right? It's making those connections. It's taking those phonemes that create words, that create sentences, that use inflection to now mean something to you. So when you have like a sentence, oh my gosh, I'm just going to throw this out there, but like when you have a sentence like, did you really mean to do that? I don't know, it doesn't sound very, it's a question, but it doesn't sound very demeaning, right? Because of the inflection. It's the meaning of it. But if you start to inflect with a tone of like, did you really mean to do that? Okay. That starts to have a different meaning. And so your cortical level of your brain is now making those connections. It's perceiving it and evaluating that sound that came in and said, oh my gosh, is she really mad at me now because I did that? Or if it was the first way, like, did you really mean to do that? Then it wouldn't come across as so demeaning, right? And so your cortical level of your brain is that perception and evaluation of the sound. Then it goes down to the limbic system. The limbic system is where we now have emotional association with sounds, okay? So that would probably mean, depending on how that inflection was or how you took it up in that brain area, now your limbic system is able to have an emotional association, like, wow, okay, I'm really not liking that person anymore because they were so mean to me when they just asked me that question. Like, what do you mean? Did I really mean to do that? Yeah, I did, So your limbic system is saying, is using that emotional association and now saying the next time you run into that person because they talk to you like that, maybe you might not necessarily want to talk to them and you go out of your way to avoid them. So your limbic system is now assigning this emotional association to some sound, to some words that you heard. For some, the autonomic nervous system then kicks in. When the limbic system is excited so high, the autonomic nervous system kicks in, and that's when you start to have physiological responses, the anxiety, right? So that person that talked to you about that, the person that said, oh my gosh, did you really mean to do that, right? That created an emotional association in your limbic system, and then your autonomic nervous system is now like, okay, like if that person starts walking around the corner and starts walking up to me, wants to talk to me, like, I'm going to have to escape because I really don't want to have to deal with this negativity. That's the autonomic nervous system giving you that anxiety, giving you those physiological responses from sound. And what I'm showing you is the neurophysiological model of sound and basically saying it is not just hearing that we're doing, but it is listening, and it's not just listening either, but it is the connection of all of these things and the reason why we can tune into certain people, and the reason why we can tune out to certain people is because of what's going on in the brain and how sound works, right? Okay, so I'm hoping that made sense. Give me some likes. I'm gonna have to go back and read all this, but I'm hoping that makes sense because my point really in all of that is that we talk about hearing and listening, and sometimes we interchange those words, and it's not really interchangeable, right? And hearing is so different. Hearing is really just in and out the door. And that's all it is. It's like, oh yeah, I heard that sound. Oh yeah, that person was mowing the lawn outside, But listening takes it a little bit more of a step higher in that brain level activity so that you're able to not just detect it, perceive it, and evaluate it. And then what makes it linger? When somebody tells you a quote, when you read a quote, when somebody really touches you, by what they said, it's because you made that physiological connection to somebody saying something, okay? And that's where it all comes into place. All right, so, okay, so boy, that totally took a long time, but I really wanted to bring up that pathway of sound because I feel like it's so important in us just understanding this whole hearing versus listening versus connection. All right, so because listening seems to be a topic of discussion that tends to repeat itself over and over, I came up with 3 tips to know when and who to listen to, just based on my own experience, okay? So this is not clinical anymore. It's just basically, I really sat down and thought about how did I learn how to listen? Again, not perfectly, right? Sometimes it's still selective. I totally agree. But how did I learn how to listen? And 3 tips. Okay, number 1 is you have to have the right people. We always say that all the time. You have to learn to listen to the right people. Here's why. Everyone has an opinion, number 1. So how do you even know who to listen to, right? Not everyone needs to know. So keep that circle tight. I don't even know if it's going to be a circle, right? You don't want that many people in your business. And so who do you listen to? And just remember that not everyone has to know. Even though people ask you what's going on, doesn't mean you have to answer. It doesn't mean you have to give up that information, right? Because not everyone's going to understand. And you have to be okay that not everyone is going to understand what you're doing, what you're going through, what decision you actually ended up making. You will actually be shocked because I was. You will actually be shocked at those who get it and those who just don't get it, but it's okay. It is okay that they don't get it. It's okay to disconnect. You have to disconnect in some areas of your life to be the best version of you. And you cannot let others' opinions and their mindset make you stop being who you're supposed to be, right? So some people you can listen to easily. Some people you make that connection, that brain connection, and you can listen to and you get it. You get what they're saying. Others can hear other people, but you might not connect with that person. So you have to make sure that you have this connection and build this relationship of trust so that when the time comes when you actually need someone to help you walk through some decisions or give you some different points or guidance, you already have that trust and that connection, right? And, it's okay to move on. It's okay to move on. I've talked about that. It's okay to disconnect. There were times when I just looked at someone and said in my head, I can't believe that, like, you just said that and you thought that was okay. Like, I can't believe it. I said it in my head and I'm like, wow, then what am I doing around you? There are also people who have tried to have open conversations. I've tried to sit down because somebody said, I'm really not understanding why you made this decision. So I said, okay, well, let's sit down and I'll walk you through my decision-making process and why I wanted to, which I did not need to do, but I thought it would be a good, thing to, I think I felt obligated, honestly, to do that, right? And so I did sit down. I tried to sit down and I came across and I said, this is what I was thinking, right? This is my thought process. This is where I need to be with my energy at this time. And you know what? They still didn't get it. They still didn't get it. So I was like, okay, it's okay to agree to disagree. Or I didn't even get that far. They basically just hounded me out again and again and again and did not understand. So I said, all right, then I'm done. I'm sorry. I tried to explain myself. So, I've been through it. I've been through different things. I've agreed to disagree. And then there are times where your tribe tells you what you actually need to hear and will support you through it. And this is because sometimes when you are in this mental state of making decisions, you might not necessarily be able to make them clearly. And maybe the answers are buried so deep that you just can't see it because you are so deep into thought and deep into being so worried about making the wrong decision, right? So number one, a tip to know when and who to listen to is surround yourself and listen to the right people. The second tip, and I spend a lot of time on that because to me, people are super important. The right people are super important, I should clarify. Number two is listen to your gut. Okay, we talk about this all the time. Listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. But here's the thing, and I've been through this as well. If you don't feel good about something, if you look at something, you've got all knots in your stomach and you just feel sick about different things, like every day when you go to work, if you feel sick and you feel like mad and you feel frustrated because you're just not happy at where you work, what's stopping you from just leaving, right? I know there's so many other decisions out there like money and feeding the family and whatever it is. So I get it. But would you rather go into work every day having that knot in your stomach and having that? So you've got to learn to listen to your gut and to your intuition. And deep down, you know what's right and wrong and you have to do something. So just do it. Just do it. Now, okay, I'm going to back up because as many of you know, I am a tiger mom and it's very black and white for me sometimes. Sometimes it's not black and white. I'm telling you the truth. It's not always black and white for me all the time, but I know you can't just say, okay, then just go do it, right? So let's slow down. Let's kind of step back. And although it seems simple at times for some people to make decisions, for other people, those decisions that are simple for others aren't the same. And so, what we really need to look at is, are you really listening to your gut and intuition? Or are you listening to, I don't know, maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's anxiety, right? Because anxiety makes it harder to listen to your intuition. Anxiety can even disguise itself as your intuition, which is really kind of scary. But here are some things that I found that suggest it's probably more anxiety than your intuition, all right? So I have 4 different things here. Number 1 is it part of a pattern. So for example, like my dad passed away from a heart attack and I went out to the funeral and I came back and I swear every little heart flutter that I had, I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to die? Oh my gosh, am I just going to keel over? Oh my gosh, am I going to have atrial fibrillation? Every little heart flutter. Was it intuition or was it anxiety? Ding, ding, ding. I bet you all of you guys will say it's anxiety, right? It was anxiety. Oh my gosh, every time. So was it a pattern, right? Was it a pattern for me? Was it something that I've never felt my heart race and I only felt it once? And, maybe did my arm really hurt? I don't know. Maybe I was imagining that it hurt. So if it was one time, then that feeling could possibly be more informative of, excuse me, Natalie, you might be having a heart attack, so you might want to do something about it. Versus if I had a heart flutter for the next week every day and it was a pattern to it, it's probably anxiety of, oh my gosh, like maybe this is genetic. Okay, so, and I do have to tell you guys, because I am in the medical field, I did start to freak out. So it was anxiety, but what happened was I did go into the doctor and they did the whole EKG on me and there was no problem at all. But it was just one of those things like, what are you going to do? So, again, I've been through all of this, right? Okay, so is it a pattern? The second thing you want to ask yourself to try to really decide if it's anxiety or your intuition or your gut is there really another explanation for why things seem off, right? If you can think of another explanation of why this might be happening, then it's probably that. And it really isn't your gut, but it's more your anxiety, right? The third thing is, does your fear reflect any assumptions or jumping to conclusions without any facts? So are you starting to freak out and are you starting to worry without having all the facts? If you are, it's probably not your intuition or your gut, but it's probably more anxiety, right? And then the last thing that I found really trying to weigh whether or not it's anxiety or intuition is if you get false alarms a lot. When you get a bad feeling and it turns out to be fine, are you noticing a lot more of that? Then it's probably more anxiety than it is intuition. All right. So that kind of comes all under you're talking about your gut. So again, I'm talking about 3 different ways to know when and who to listen to. Number 1 is surround yourself with the right people and listen to the right people. Number 2 is start to learn how to listen to your gut and your intuition and really separate that from anxiety. And the last thing that I came up with is really listen to the lessons and the truth in everything that you are going through. So that means, there's always lessons in everything, but that means in both the good and the bad things that happen. So you might not see it right away, but sometimes you're able to look back and go, oh, yeah, I totally remember that. And oh my gosh, I totally learned my lesson, right? And you might see the lesson later. And if you don't learn your lesson, here's the deal. It's probably going to happen again until you actually learn your lesson. So I am trying to, I don't spend a lot of time reflecting because again, that also wastes time and wastes your energy too. But I really try to step back from whatever I've gone through, mostly the bad things, right? But, sometimes it's good to do it in the good things too, because you're making good decisions as well during that time. But I always try to step back and say, okay, what was I supposed to learn from this? Because I don't want things to happen again, especially if it was a bad thing. So again, this is where discernment starts to come into play and it's learned and it gets easier. To me, it gets easier and easier to walk away, to disconnect, or it gets easier to start trusting the right people. So my call to action for you guys, thank you for hanging in there. I know it's a longer episode today, but I thought it was super important to really hone in on this, especially because I get to talk about it using my audiology world, as well as what's so important to me, which is the connection to all of you and to some of the friends that I've made, is my call to action. And what I really want you to focus on is I want you to find trusted people to gain some insights into your decisions or into that dilemma or into that situation that you're going through. Find those trusted people. And I said gain insight. I didn't say to tell you what to do, but to just maybe ask, right? And then you've got to take your time to sort through. So listen to what they're saying and sort through it all. It doesn't mean that one person's right. It means that these are just different points that I want you to kind of piece together and decide, okay, these are the wise people in my life. Right? These are the people that care about me. And I'm going to kind of piece everything together and then move forward knowing that you've pieced together everything that you can do to make your decision a lot easier. They're valid points, they're arguments maybe, but take all of that, clear your head. Don't allow it to make you more foggy, but really try to take everything and then compile it together and make your decision, and everybody will be behind you. So I wanted to just thank you all for hanging in there and for really being with me and talking about listening and hearing and connection. And I will go back. I'm so sorry. I get on a roll and I start talking and I don't read the comments as much. So I will go back because I'm super interested to see what you have to say and maybe share what you guys have gone through with learning how to listen and learning that discernment, or whether it be learning who to listen to, whether it be learning a big lesson about listening to your gut or to your intuition, because I think, again, we can all learn from each other, you guys. So please feel free to put more comments up even after the show is done, because I'll go back and I would really love to learn from you guys as well. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode, and I will see you next week, Wednesday, 5:30 on Just Connect. All right. See you later.